And we're going to go over what I call level 1 exercises, and these are typically used for back stiffness or minor back pains. Sometimes these will help alleviate it a little bit, but the basic intent here is to bring in some core strength and start to strengthen the back in a safe way. So we have Catherine here that's going to help us out today. She is a yoga instructor, so she does these things all day. So if we're starting on our back, the first thing we need to do is we're going to start with a fundamental yoga pose called child's pose. So we're going to need to roll over and get on our knees and elbows. Here she's using her legs to kick them out, use the weight of her legs to help roll her up. If that's painful, another way we might want to do it is to roll up on our side, come up on our elbow and use our hands to push us up. Helps keep our back a little straighter without putting any stress into our back. So here she is coming on her knees. Her knees are about shoulder width, and she's going to come backwards down into what we call child's pose. Now the objective of this stretch is to try to be as relaxed as possible. And what she's going to do next is she's going to start breathing here into her diaphragm. So she's going to use her breathing to help compress the intestines. And what that's going to do is that's going to help stretch the low back area out. So the objective, be as relaxed as possible and let your breathing do as much of the work as possible. We're used to stretching very physically and using strength to help us stretch muscles. This is an opposite concept here. Here we're going to be as relaxed as we possibly can. So as she stretches, and she might want to feel like she's relaxing a little bit and she's not feeling quite as much of a stretch, she can work her fingertips out and basically lengthen or add some length to her spine while she's breathing. Typically we want to hold this pose anywhere from 3 to 6 minutes. The longer the better. So what we're going to do here is we're going to transition into our next pose, which is called pigeon pose. This is also a fundamental yoga pose. As you see, she brought one leg up and she crossed her foot over across her torso. She makes this look really easy. This might be a little bit more complicated, once again, depending on how sore or tender you are. From here, she's going to lay forward. Once again, bringing a stretch into the leg that's folded in front. So right here, right now, she's stretching her right leg. So Catherine, come back out of this for us, and then let's switch legs. And usually as we come down into this, once again, she made it look easy. It might be a little bit more cumbersome. We might have to start more on our knees. And then as we stretch into it, we're going to use this leg to bring us down into the stretch and bring our abdomen towards our leg. So she's very flexible. Usually when we're in this pose initially, we're up a little bit higher and we're going to feel the stretch through the outer glute. And then as we start to stretch into it, we can lean slowly and bring our body weight more to the outside to stretch across the entire glute. So once again, this is a relaxation stretch where we just want to relax into it, keep the body as loose as possible, and let our body weight stretch through that glute. This is a great stretch to come through the glute, up into the low back, the quadratus lumborum, and the extensor muscles. This is really good for those types of muscles. So Catherine, come back up, and what we're going to do is she's going to transition back onto her back. And now we're going to do an isometric exercise for the low back. This is called a bridge. It's very important to do this the accurate way. What she's going to do first is show us the improper way. So if you notice, she just rolled her pelvis so that her tailbone and her sacrum just came off of the floor. If she were to lift in this position, she actually is not getting any benefit to the low back muscles. Come on, back down now. What she wants to do, and what I typically have people do, is put our hands right here on the wings of our pelvis and now come up into a bridge. So what she's doing is she's lifting the rear end up and she's keeping that pelvis completely straight as she comes up. This keeps the low back muscles activated. The first way she showed where she rolled the pelvis up, that will actually shut the low back muscles off, and then you do not get any isometric component to the low back. So with this bridge exercise, we want to do an isometric workout for the low back where we're strengthening and toning the low back muscles but not putting any stress into them. as she does her repetitions up and down. Typically the quad wants to fire automatically, so her focus is going to be using the glute muscles and the hamstring muscles to help her lift. And we're going to use and train the glutes and the hamstrings to fire to assist the quadriceps, because most of us tend to be quad dominant, which means that the quads just fire and do most of the work. Here we're going to use this exercise to condition and train the glutes and the hamstrings to also assist in these movements, and also keep the low back in an isometric position. Usually we want to try to do 20 to 30 reps of these. That might sound like a lot, but this is a pretty easy exercise, and we will usually start out with what is comfortable. But usually after a couple of weeks, people are getting up to a couple hundred in one set. Once again, it sounds like a lot, but it is pretty easy. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to segue into an upper ab crunch. Now I'm a real stickler for this one. This is all technique driven right here. What she's going to do is she's going to bring her hands down to cup her neck. And what we're going to try to do with this crunch is focus specifically on the ab muscle itself. That means we're not going to use our arms or our neck muscles as an assist, which is the typical way we do crunches. So Catherine's going to come up into her start-stop position. So as you notice, she's in a position where her shoulder blades are off of the floor. This is where we're going to start and stop the movement. So from here, she's going to contract specifically the abs, and the objective is to bring the rib cage towards the pelvis, and now go back down. And that is our rep right there. Nice, short sequence rep. Do a couple more for me, Catherine. So here she's moving. As you notice, she's only moving a couple of inches. That's because she's isolating this ab muscle specifically. She's not incorporating any arm, neck into this type of an exercise. So this gets us very specific, isolate that ab, and it usually keeping the back flat on the floor will help alleviate any kind of tension that's in the back itself. So if you're feeling any low back pain when you're doing this, you want to make sure that your back is flat on the floor as you're doing this. If you have any arch, you might feel a little compression in the low back. So this is level 1, low back exercises.